I'm reminded, as I was sitting there, my mind was going out to the universe, that we are on YouTube, and so I want to say hello to Dan and Jackie Palka in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and to Cindy and Jill in Huntsville, Alabama, and to Doug and all of my friends in Nashville who are listening in. And tell your friends we're on YouTube and they can listen, because we're bringing that global community in here into this very room. And so we're loving you and blessing you if you're present in the room or if you are out and about your life in an exciting and powerful way somewhere else in the universe. So thank you for that. I always love it when the first time I heard Dolly Parton say she was never offended by all of the dumb blonde jokes, because she said, how was it that she said it? She said, "I'm not offended by the dumb blonde jokes because I'm not dumb." And then she'd say, "And I'm also not blonde." So that was cute. Well, in our our series on healing over the past few weeks, we're laying the foundation of wisdom and intelligence and practical assurance that we can use our minds to heal our bodies. That is just a known fact these days, but more and more we have to acclimate ourselves to our belief in that, right? Because we have so many influences that say otherwise, and we have to begin to turn our consciousness toward that affirmation of belief. And I've been working with Dr. Frederick Bale's book, classic work, Your Mind Can Heal You, and we've had lessons all month long on the power of our minds to heal us. He was inspired to his work when he was diagnosed with diabetes. He was going to be a medical missionary, and then because of the diabetes, he couldn't go out, travel out, and do all of that, so he became a medical doctor instead and studied in London. And when he was diagnosed with diabetes, that's when he first heard of this idea that your mind has the power to heal your body. And there wasn't a lot of medical research or scientific research on that. So he said as he began that journey down that path, he was pretty much on his own. He had to figure things out for himself and prove things for himself. And he said it took quite a few years for him to get to the point of complete surrender to the flow of mind and not be consciously obstructing it. And he said it wasn't because that he didn't believe in it, it was that the thought was so foreign to everything he had been trained to believe. So he was retraining his mind. And that's true for every one of us. We daily in our conversations, we are saying things that are not the truth of our bodies. Winter's coming, and I get that one cold every winter. No, you don't. You only get it because you say you do, right? It's flu season. It's, I'm not as flexible as I used to be. Well, when you age, your eyes, you just can't see as well. We have to stop that conversation. Stop that conversation. When everybody says, well, when you age, I just say, I don't believe in aging. I mean, like I'm 100 years old. I don't look it, because I don't believe in aging. So anyway, he said it took quite a few years for him to get the complete point of surrender to the flow of mind, because the thought was so foreign to what he had been trained to believe. But he was pretty disciplined and scientific about his process. He went into the lab once a week and measured his sugar levels, and he said some weeks the tests were just remarkably great, and other weeks the sugar level would be very high. And he said, and that went on the entire time that he was in his process of healing. He said he felt that eventually, when the tests began to move toward normal all the time, he felt it was directly related to his rise in consciousness. And two things: his rise in consciousness, his expansion in consciousness, and his understanding. He had a clearer understanding of the working of the law of mind. He was studying that, and the more he understood that, the more he could surrender into the flow of its power, and the more he was lifted in consciousness, he began to get well. And he reached a point where he was able to release his entire healing, surrender it over to the law of mind, and he lived free of diabetes for 50 years, the last 50 years of his life. So he really was a testament to this work that's in his book. And he has a lot of scientific proof or medical support, but I'm not that kind of technician, and so I like to talk more about the spiritual pieces. He said in his process, he gained some very powerful spiritual insights, and here are three. He found that the creative intelligence that we observe at work in the body, when we have that pesky paper cut and the skin heals automatically, when we have a bruise and it goes away, when we have a bug bite and the swelling goes down and it heals. He said the creative intelligence we observe at work in the body is the same intelligence that knows perfectly how to heal the structure that it built. So it knows how to heal itself. We don't have to interfere with those processes. When we get the flu, the fever breaks, we get well. We get the cold, the congestion stops, we get well. We have the paper cut, the skin heals, we get well. We don't do anything with that, except kind of wait patiently, right? So then we get a bigger illness, like a cancer or a diabetes or high blood pressure, and we think we have to do all this stuff. He's saying it's the underlying thought that's causing it. His second thing, he surmised that the body knew how to build our cells out of nothing, and it knows how to build new cells when something happens to sicken the old ones. It's like, if infinite intelligence, if the creator, the God consciousness, formed a body out of nothing, that intelligence didn't just abandon it, it instilled in it a process for its perpetual renewal and health. So he said the intelligence that knew how to build our cells out of nothing knows how to build new cells when something happens to sicken the old ones. And then his greatest insight, or the one that I think I have found most helpful, is he said to achieve his healing, is while the mind activity that built the body is highly intelligent and able to build any structure perfectly, any organ, any cell, any eye, anything perfectly, it is non-reasoning intelligence, meaning that it has no will of its own. It only acts when it is acted upon. This intelligence, this mind that builds our body, knows the mechanics of how to build the cells, but it must also always be given a pattern to follow. It doesn't think on its own. The spiritual law is set up so that it operates in a certain way, and we have to follow that operation. We have to give a pattern to that law, and then it kicks into gear and it follows that operation. It will follow a disease pattern as quickly as it will follow a pattern of health. It just follows the pattern that we give it. I think about this, and he used this example in his book about a battleship, or you think about a battleship, a big destroyer ship. How does that float in the water? There's a law, right, of the displacement of the water that holds the weight of the battleship. That law was always there, right? It's just we learned how to operate that law to successfully float that ship. When a plane takes off into the air, all those thousands of pounds are lifted up according to some scientific law. What is it? Aerodynamics, loft. There's lots of laws that are operating. And when we put ourselves in right relationship to those laws and work in cooperation with those laws and step into that law and let that law do what it was designed to do, the plane lifts off. And if we don't follow those laws, the battleship sinks, the plane doesn't fly. And so your body is the same way. When we experience illness, our part is to cooperate with the law of life, with the law of health that's already been set up. It's been there forever. It's always there. It's fully operational. Its purpose, its sole purpose, is to keep the body vitally alive. And so we have to align ourselves with it so that, or cooperate with its operation. Are you with me? We have to learn to do that. We take definite steps, so we do that by taking definite steps to change any underlying thought of illness and to keep our thought pattern on health, life, love, wholeness, wisdom, the attributes of a healthy body, vitality, strength, all of that. We keep our mind focused on that. We give that pattern to the body. And then in his work, Dr. Bales gives us a 7-step process of mental activity that we can use to keep our minds on the perfection of the body until it becomes automatic, until we stop saying it's flu season, it's cold season, it's arthritis, it's I can't bend, I'm not flexible. We have to train our minds out of that and train ourselves into, I am a miracle of God in expression. My body is perfect health and life. I don't believe in aging. I don't believe in sickness. I don't believe in inflammation. I don't believe in arthritis. I don't believe in poor eyesight. I don't believe in migraine headaches. I don't believe in depression. I don't believe in insomnia. You have to stop believing all that because you're living it because you believe it. So stop right at the beginning with the underlying thought. So I want to just finish our series today giving you his 7 R's, his 7 steps to enter into this process that you can train your mind. And if you have an illness, you work with this process. It's a little bit long to give you not long to talk about the 7 steps today, but at the end, we'll do the process. It only takes a few minutes. You can take as long as you want. You could do it for an hour, you could do it for 15 seconds. But there's 7 steps that he feels are vitally important to a process of moving into this training the mind in the activity of wholeness. Some of them we know and we use here all the time. Claudia used it in her meditation today. Step number 1, relaxation. Take a couple of deep breaths. You want to get your body into a place where if you have an illness, you're letting go of its insistence in your body for even just a few minutes. Ask it to sit down over here at the side. You cannot direct the mind to wellness if it's under the influence of fear, doubt, worry, anxiety, anger, confusion. So you have to compartmentalize. You have to set that over there for a little bit and just take a few minutes to relax. Dr. Bales said you could do some quiet reading and something inspirational. You could sit and listen to music. You could be in prayer. But whatever you need to do to feel that you have, for a few moments, a calm detachment from your illness, the illness. Don't even call it yours. Not my illness, not my arthritis, not my eyesight. The condition over there. Set it aside. Step 2 is recognition. There has to be a recognition in our intellectual understanding that we are spiritual mind beings, and the connection, we are spirit, mind, body. And we're going to talk a lot about this in my class. That's what the little diagram is. It's going to show you what that looks like. Spirit, mind, body beings. And we recognize the fact that spirit, God consciousness, universal Christ is over all. And that the mind comes in under that. And that the mind is subject to the domination and authority and direction of the Christ. And the Christ speaks to us in our thoughts, in our thinking. So that we have the mind has the ability, the infinite intelligence, this level has the infinite intelligence to create anything, a healthy body, just perfectly, and to maintain it and restore it. But it has to follow the direction of mind. Law is subject to mind. And we have to get that understanding that we are spirit, mind, body. Spirit is wholeness, it directs mind, and then mind manifests or produces outcome in our physical bodies. Dr. Bales said it this way: we have to arrive at a belief in the absolute obedience of the law of mind to spirit, and the assurance that it swings its whole power into operation at the direction that we give it. So we are in cooperation with Spirit. The mind of God is in us, and we're directing universal law, spiritual law, and it has to swing into full operation at the direction that we give it. And we can give it a direction of disease and discomfort and illness and sadness and depression and grief, or we can give it a pattern of life and health and wholeness and love. He also said in his work, which I would take issue with, is that the law of mind works ceaselessly upon all thought. And I would say, does all thought create? No, thank goodness, right? No, thank goodness, not all. So if the mind works ceaselessly on all thought, it receives every thought that we impress, but it goes to work on the dominant thoughts that we think and feel. It has to have the combination of thinking and feeling. You have to think about your wholeness and you have to feel your wholeness. And when that's dominant in your consciousness, that's the one that's going to be set in motion. What happens is we get an illness and we get afraid. So we instantly have emotion with thought. And it creates. So you've got to calm those fears down and move into a different emotion about hopefulness that you can be healed. Expectation of joy of how you'll feel when you are living in a healthy body. Emotion and mind and intellect. Emotion and I like heart and mind, wisdom and feeling have to blend to create. Third R is relationship. We have to know that we're part of the greater whole, and we know these things in unity. A lot of these are just real familiar to us, that we are one with the one mind, one with the mind of God. And I like to think of it as if we are waves in the ocean, that the ocean is all the God consciousness that there is, and we're a wave in that ocean, and we can never be separate from the ocean. You can't take a wave out of the ocean, right? You just can't take a wave out of the ocean. And so we're one with God, we're one with the one mind, and we can't be sick in our true spiritual nature because no place was made in the body for illness when divine mind created the body. Isn't that something to think about? There's no place in your body that holds a space for illness. There's no place in the perfection of your body that was created to have illness. There is only life. Your body was created as an eternally renewing, operating miracle. So let's put our hands on our hearts and say, I am an operating miracle. Together, I am an operating miracle. Right? This is what we have to start training our body. I am an operating miracle. I am an eternally renewing operating miracle. Everything in me is whole and well. Everything. I am an operating miracle. 4 is reasoning. Number 4R is reasoning. And sometimes to take all of this on intellectually and to get, like Dr. Bales said, he had a rise in consciousness, but he also had a clearer understanding of how spiritual law operated. So reasoning, sometimes in order to arrive at that inner certainty that our minds can heal us and that we can do the work to be healed, we have to work through some doubts and fears. We have to work through some emotion and some conversations in our heads. We have to work through what others have said, what the history of the illness is, what the pathology is, what the diagnosis is, what the x-rays show, what if I don't get well, all of those conversations, all of that thought we have to work through. And we may have to go through a reasoning process to talk ourselves into this idea, to take hold of this idea sufficiently to see it produce in our lives, to see it work in our lives. So you may have to argue with yourself. And arguing is a higher vibration of energy than depression or than feeling sad about it. You may have to get mad at your illness. You may have to argue with your own sense of disbelief or limitation. You may have to argue with your doubts. You may have to get stronger and more definitive in your conversations about your illness, about your healing. We don't even want to talk about the illness. You have to get more declarative in your statements and your language with more energy to assert the truth of who you are. I am a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual law. That spiritual law has a perfect process of health and life. That health and life is in my body now, renewing. I am an eternal miracle of God. See, you just have to get more definitive. March around your house. Walk around your house. Louise Hay always said, do the mirror work. You just march around your house. And I get on the elliptical and I read affirmations because I'm using my body and my mind and my physical being, and I'm integrating it into the cells of my being. And so on my treadmill, I am a miracle of God. I am a miracle of God. It works. Go through a reasoning process. Tell yourself the truth that divine intelligence built the body with the intention of having it always function perfectly. You've heard Deepak Chopra say, if we got on a plane today, here we are, took a suitcase, went, left, we're gone for 7 years and came back, we would not be the same person. Not one cell in our body would be the same. Every cell in your liver, in your stomach, in your heart, in your brain, in your body would have regenerated and renewed itself and replaced itself. 7 years, whole new body. You make a new stomach in like 3 months. You make a new liver in 6 months. So this idea, tell yourself, when this reasoning process, you tell yourself that divine intelligence built the body with the intention of having it always function perfectly and to renew itself perpetually. This is why Charles Fillmore said he was never going to die, because he took hold of the idea that the body, we should be able to live in this body forever. Secondly, divine intelligence always contemplates the body as being in a perfect state and works tirelessly to obliterate anything that would threaten its life. From that pesky paper cut, the bug bites, the flus, the bruises, you can see reasoning, rational evidence that your body can heal, has the power to heal, has the intelligence to know how to heal. And so we have to reason with ourselves and keep reminding ourselves that when we're facing something that isn't healing as fast as we would like it to, that isn't changing as fast as we would like it to, that maybe sometimes is even getting worse. Remember Dr. Bales said he got his tests, and sometimes they were good and sometimes they were not so good. So you want to build these kinds of thoughts into your arsenal of educated thinking. Divine intelligence built the body with the intention of having it always functioning perfectly, and divine intelligence always contemplates your body as being in a perfect state and works tirelessly and faithfully to keep it that way. He gives a series of affirmations in the book, in many places in the book, that are really powerful. Again, to do like a power drill for your body. The one that I pulled out for today, he starts always with, I don't care what the doctors say, because you want to push that off to the side. I don't care what the doctors say. Divine mind can grow a broken bone together, and doctors cannot. So let's start there, that there is an infinite intelligence that is higher than the medical realm. He says, my body is pure spiritual substance in every cell. And if there's something in your body that needs healing this morning, just let it hear these words inside of you right now. My body is pure spiritual substance in every cell. Where spirit dwells, there is only peace and perfection. Spirit is at the very spot where this ugly false illness is trying to make itself real. And spirit now fills every single cell with its own presence, healing all false forms. I know that spirit is all there is, and my entire body from head to toe, from innermost atom to outermost skin, is the home of only spirit. I affirm harmonious action within my body as it is filled with the presence of healing life, peace, health, and perfection right now. So that's recognition, reasoning, recognition. And that takes us into the fifth one, realization. And that is, after a prayer like that, after a series of affirmative, life-affirming energy in your body, it moves you into a point of consciousness where you can feel your wholeness. you can feel something's working. And it comes in a feeling that's really quite surprising. Because we're always striving to get somewhere where we feel the presence of God. But when you work in this realm of prayer and reasoning, and you get still, and you do all the relaxation and the recognition and the relationship and the reasoning, and then you come to this place of realization, very surprisingly, what you feel is relief. You're there. And you feel a complete surrender that you have touched the hem of the garment, that you have touched the edge. You don't have to touch the whole thing. You don't have to enter into the full presence of God. You have touched the edge of the universal God consciousness. And full healing has been infused into you. And it feels like relief. Some people say peace, but when that shift takes place, when all the tumblers click in, it's relief. I know, and I know that I know I'm well. And it may take your body, your physicality, a few days to catch up, a few months to catch up to the moment when you touch that realization. But in that moment, you are fully healed. In that moment. This is what Dr. Bales achieved. This is what he knew. When he got that insight, he said, mind can heal us, but it has no ability to act on itself, so I've got to give it a thought to direct. And then when it goes to operate the way it's supposed to do and all the tumblers click into place, you're there. And you know it. Realization. You feel relief. It may take a second, it may take an hour to get to that place of relief. It's not years, it's constantly working to get yourself to that place and touching it, and then getting up and going about your day. You don't have to sit in a cave for 10 years or, work on your illness for 6 months. It's about returning to that touch frequently or routinely until you live from that place of wholeness. The sixth step is to release. We remember that we let go and remove ourselves from any responsibility. Jesus said, I of myself do nothing. It is who? The Father within that does the work. The Father within. It's spiritual law that does the work. We're not responsible for the outcome or for the healing. We're responsible for one thing in our healing and one thing only, and that's giving the law of mind a perfect pattern to follow. And to feel that, and to live that, and to sleep that, and eat that, and drink that life, and give that pattern to mind. When we do that, when we have a picture of our perfection and we turn it over to Spirit, in effect, what we're saying is, here are my instructions. You, law of mind, are a perfect servant of Spirit, and I know that you have the intelligence to carry everything out perfectly. So I'm letting go, and I'm going to live in that feeling of relief and release. And we turn away and go about our own business, knowing that we've given the law its operating instructions, and we're going to just live in that consciousness. You don't need to return to the problem and strain and push and tell the universal law how to work. It knows how to do it and has all the power that it needs. However, there are times when our fears and our doubts are so overwhelming that we have to step into this process of prayer, 2 or 3 times a day, maybe even initially, as we're retraining and repatterning our minds. You don't want to be in it constantly, because there's such a thing as mental and spiritual constipation. So you want to get your prayer work done, get to that point of relief, feeling of, oh yeah, I touched the hem, I'm good to go, and then you can get up. If the thought comes back, you can give yourself a little mantra or a little phrase like, well, Spirit's taking care of that, or I'm glad the law of mind is working on that. It's going to do a very good and competent job, and I can relax and let it do its part. I've done my part, now Spirit will do Spirit's part. Just get a little self-talk going on that when it tries to creep in, you can just put it in its place and take your hands off the wheel. Last step is rejoicing. In all things give thanks. The law of operation, the law of mind doesn't need our thanksgiving, doesn't want our thanksgiving, isn't even influenced by our thanksgiving. Our thanksgiving is to confirm in our own mind that we believe that this is set in place and that good is coming from it, and we are giving thanks in advance. So those are your 7 steps. It's relaxation, recognition, relationship, reasoning, realization, release, and rejoice. Rejoice, give thanks. It doesn't have to be a lengthy process, and I want to close our time together this morning by walking us through this process very quickly so you can have an example of how you could use it in your daily spiritual work. So let's just take a moment, and I invite you again, if there's something in your life that needs healing, it could be healing in your emotions, healing in your finances, or healing in your physical body. All the healing life of the universe is possible for us. And so we take a moment and we take the first step, which is relax. And so you will become still and quiet your thoughts. And then recognize familiar words spoken by Charles Fillmore. I am now in the presence of pure being. Relationship. I am immersed in oneness with Spirit. Reasoning. I acknowledge the presence and power of the law of mind. Realization. From this pure substance of life and love, my body in this very moment is healed. Release. I release this word into the law of mind with a great sense of relief, knowing it's working according to perfect law. And rejoice. I give thanks that I am in perfect health now. And so it is. Amen.